Hello, this is a lecture for Chapter 3 of the textbook. So the learning objectives for this chapter are to understand the relationship between the regulatory compliance requirements and information systems security policies, and to define cyber terrorism and the nation-state threat. So the key concepts that we're going to look at for this chapter are compliance laws in the United States and their importance, aligning security policies with regulations, industry self-regulation through leading practices, looking at who is protected by the regulations, and benefits of using established security frameworks. So cyber terrorism and nation-state threats. Cyber terrorism is an attempt to cause fear or major disruptions in a society through computer hacking. Attacks to government computers, major companies, or key areas of the economy, such as banks, ATMs, and news sites. So nation states are sovereign countries. Attacks can come from terrorist groups, individuals, or nation states. Cyber terrorism is often sponsored by nation states. So the government drivers for regulations. So the three main drivers which are connected are consumer protection, stable economy, and tax revenue. And if people aren't protected and can't work, then the economy will be impacted, and that will impact tax receipts. So they're all interlinked together and concerned with the economic benefits. So security policies has competing goals. We have shareholder value, regulations, which protect consumer and public interest, and the technology vulnerabilities and limitations. So you talk about maximize return for shareholders, you want to protect consumers and public interest with regulations, and reduce technology threats with technology vulnerabilities and limitations. With IT systems, it's easier to attack than it is to defend. For a hacker, it is potential payday to get into a system. For a company, security is just a cost of doing business. So again, it's easier to be on the attack than it is to defend. So key concepts affecting those policies. First, you have to have consumer rights and privacy. Data privacy. A company tells people how their data is going to be used and how it's going to be protected. Full disclosure. People know what data is going to be collected from them. Informed consent. People have the facts to make a decision. Limited use of data. Data is only used for an immediate transaction. So if you're buying something, the data is only used for that particular transaction. Also opt in, opt out, and get someone's permission to make use of their data. And then public interest. Companies have an obligation to the public good. So examples of regulations in the United States. The Federal Information Security Management Act applies to federal government and also organizations that process government data. The regulations, information security for government agencies. Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA. It covers health care data for health plans and business associates. Regulates privacy, protecting health information. Then we have the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, That's for banks and investment companies and other financial services companies. That protects customer data and privacy. Sarbanes-Oxley Act. That's for public corporations for financial accuracy and public disclosure for investment purposes. Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA. That's for educational institutions. Privacy of student educational records. For example, as an instructor, I do not have access to your student records. There's no reason for me to have it. If I was going to advise you as an advisor, then I would need access. I would have a business reason to access your records. But as an instructor, I don't have a business reason to have access to your student records. So that's an example of how those regulations work. Children's Internet Protection Act. That's for schools and libraries that get federal funding. It covers access to sexually explicit material. So regulations protect. They protect individuals for privacy and consumer rights. Protect shareholders. So investor trust promotes a healthy economy, because you have a trust in that the markets are working correctly, because everyone has access to the information. Protect the public interest, obligation beyond self-interest, which is a vague term, but the courts look at it as an impact on industry or the economy, and also national security. And the type of cyber terrorism threatens targeted company and a company's infrastructure, such as power or internet. So align security policies with regulations. The steps for that would be to map the business processes to the security policy, map security policy to the regulations, and then map security controls to the regulations. For the benefits of using established security frameworks, you have proven standards based on years of experience across multiple industries. So it gives you a lot of data, a lot of tested procedures that you can use. Provides high quality end product, provides evidence of proper risk management, and it might cover you. It might be sufficient for compliance with such things as Sarbanes-Oxley. So industry self-regulation. Industries self-regulate to avoid government regulation. Self-regulation is less costly and more flexible than a government regulation would be. Industry standards may turn into best practices and also leading practices. Particularly in the United States, the government has been largely hands-off with regards to security regulations, for better or for worse. So industry self-regulation examples, the PCI DSS, that's the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards. That's a worldwide standard used for credit card transactions. The SSAE 16, that's an audit standards for a company's information security controls. That statement on standards for attestation, engagement number 16, that attestation is evidence or proof. So basically it's providing, the accountants are saying this is how you can prove that you have information security controls in place. And ITIL, the Information Technology Infrastructure Library, is developed in Great Britain. It's a published IT standards and procedures. So roles and responsibilities. We have the government agencies that regulate information handling at federal and state levels. You have privacy or compliance officer, determine requirements for inclusion and security policies. You have auditors who review the controls and measure compliance. And you also have regulators who enforce the government regulations. So a summary of what we looked at for this chapter. We looked at government drivers for regulations, looked at aligning security policies with regulations, the drivers behind industry self-regulation, identified who is protected by regulations, and benefits of using established security frameworks. Thank you.